Hey loves, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Faith, and today guys, I'll be checking out the Daily Wire host as they react to this video that's been making wave on the internet that says there is nothing better than being single. So the backstory is that this lady has been encouraging women to get divorced because in her own world, there is nothing better than being single. And you guys, I'm excited for this video. If I had to subscribe to this channel, please consider subscribing, give this video a massive thumbs up, comment, share, and all that good stuff. And without much ado, let's see what the Daily Wire host has for us in this video.
You mentioned Emily Ratajkowski, and she just had this viral video in which she encouraged people to get divorced before age 30.
So it seems that a lot of ladies are getting divorced before they turn 30. And as someone who got married at 26, has been separated for a little over a year, 32, I have to tell you, I don't think there's anything better. If being in your 20s is the trenches, there is nothing better than being in your 30s, still being hot, maybe having a little bit of your own money, figuring out what you want to do with your life, everything, and having tried that married fantasy and realizing that it's maybe not all it's cracked up to be, and then you've got your whole life still ahead of you. So for all of those people who are stressed or feeling stressed about that, about being divorced, like it's good. Congratulations.
She looks really happy, right?
I just want to say, if you take moral guidance from an actress, you get what you're saying.
This drives me crazy. This drives me insane. Like seeing women do this new culture, the dink culture, dual income, no kids, that's spawning up on TikTok. The 29-year-old people tried to pretend was a victim when actually she was attacking people that are married and have children because there was absolutely no reason for her to make that video and talk about children. She could have just said, I got up this morning and made chouchouka, but she wanted to correlate it to the fact that, oh, well, and if you have children, this is not possible for you to be able to do, so don't get married, wink, wink.
Hold on, you mentioned that, Candace. Do we have, that one was even worse than Ratajkowski. Do we have that lady who Matt mercilessly bullied?
It's 10:45 a.m. on a Saturday. I am 29 and single, and I don't have kids yet. Here's what your Saturday morning looks like when you're single at 29 and you don't have a kid running around the house. I didn't rise from my bed until 10:15. Every time I thought, I should probably get up and do something. I thought, why? Nobody's making me, and I'm not missing out on anything. I went to Beyonce last night, and I didn't get home until 1 a.m., and I danced and drank my little heart out, and I didn't pay a babysitter to watch my kids as I did that. And I woke up a tad hungover this morning, which is probably why I was in bed for so long. And I was just scrolling on my phone and I saw a picture of shakshuka and I thought, you know what sounds really good? Maybe I'm gonna learn how to make shakshuka today. Because I have no plans and I don't have kids and I don't have a husband and I don't have errands to run. I can go to the grocery store and learn how to make shakshuka. So that's on my agenda today. Also on my agenda, probably a rewatch of some Real Housewives of New York. I'm also doing a rewatch of Normal People on Hulu, which is really spicy and I highly recommend. Weirdly, I'm into this documentary on Netflix about blue zone countries. So I've got a pretty stacked day. Anyway, I say all this to say, whenever I'm hard on myself about why I'm not married and I don't have kids and I should be further along at 29, almost 30, I wouldn't want to do anything else this Saturday. And I know that you can do all these things when you have kids and you're married, and I understand, but the effortlessness and ease of my life, just kind of focusing on myself and the shakshuka I want to make or the Beyonce concert I want to go to.
The most offensive part.
Guys, let's play a drinking game. Every time she says take a shot of whiskey.
We'd be
Every time she says
you would all be
shakshuka.
dead.
Go shoplift from
Can I
Just
say
literally
something?
a narcissist.
As the bully, can I just say something about this lady? First of all, I mean, obviously, I think most people know I got killed. I reposted that video. I had my own thought about it. I think my comment was pretty benign. I did call her stupid.
You called her stupid.
Slightly harsh, but also probably not inaccurate. I got killed over it. First of all, the left and the media, they said, well, she just wants privacy, leave her alone. She doesn't want all this attention. And then they proceeded to spend the next week talking about her and doing articles about it because they just wanted to respect her privacy. But also, this woman is a burgeoning TikTok influencer. She has a podcast all about being single and childless and how great it is. And so I have bullied her. But of course, I've brought about the fate that all TikTok influencers dread by giving her a lot of attention. So it's a terrible thing that I did. But I think the real point I wanted to make about this, that I also made in the tweet, was that aside from the fact that she's promoting this lonely, terrible life, it's also like, if you are single and childless, and there are plenty of people who are 29 and 30 single and childless, maybe they don't want to be, do something interesting with your time. You do have a lot of time, which can be an advantage. So I admit that you have a lot more free time if you're single and childless than I do as someone with 6 kids. So go out and do something, but instead of doing something,
make a tasty breakfast. Not chuck sugar.
Yeah, make a tasty breakfast and then do something. But it's just being a consumer. That's one of the big problems with the way they promote this being single childless is that they say, well, be single and childless and then devote all your extra time to being a really devoted consumer and go to a Beyonce concert and watch reality TV. It's just a dead life.
It's worse than that. And this is what drives me crazy. It's I. There's nothing wrong with being 29 and single. And I think that's what they were trying to say, that conservatives are suggesting that you've done something wrong if you're 29 and single. There's nothing wrong with being 29 and single. I know tons of people that are 29 and single, people that are 30 and single, people that are 31 and single, whatever. It goes on and on. There's no failure. Maybe you didn't meet the right person. Things can go wrong. I get it. It's a hard society to date in. What's wrong is that what she's suggesting is that you should be a raging narcissist if you are single. There are tons of things that you can do when you're single. You can go hang out with your nieces and your nephews. You can go, offer yourself to help kids that are tutoring at church. There are so many things you can do. She sits down and she basically says, the best part about not having kids is that you can just be a raging narcissist and do everything for yourself and only think about yourself and wake up at 10:15, 11:15, whatever she says, which I just think is loser behavior, and think about me all day. She speaks to the narcissistic culture that we are living in today. It drives me insane.
Even though I agree with everything you guys said, every single word, the only thing that I have to say about it is that 90%, 95% of people are born into a culture, and that's the culture that they live in. And I do feel in some ways, a woman like this, who just described one of the most empty lives I've ever heard, is a victim in some
totally
sense.
agree.
She's born into this world. The people sitting around this table are by nature, by definition, people who say, well, wait a minute, you told me this, but I'm not sure I believe that. That's not what most people are like. Most people are born into a culture and they live in that culture. And what we have done to women and what feminism has done to women is a crime.
Yeah.
And my problem with shows like Whatever, even though it's an amusing show and it's entertaining, I'm not attacking it for that reason, but it's like they pick on the last person on the totem pole who's been created basically by a culture that has so terribly lost its way, especially in regards to women and what they're supposed to be.
In her defense, shakshuka is delicious.
Okay,
I've
never had it, but
I like eggs Benedict and I like spaghetti, but I don't want to mix them together.
It is, but you need some feta cheese on top.
Is it a breakfast dish? What is it?
It is a breakfast dish. You can eat it for lunch as well. Yeah. It is effectively a tomato sauce, like a spicy tomato sauce, like a mabucha, which is the Moroccan term for it, and fried eggs on top, and then you can put some feta cheese on it.
In my defense, I make breakfast, lunch, and dinner for my husband and kids every single day, and I've got 3 on the way. I'm sorry you're poor at time management and you wake up at 10:15. You also have the option to have shakshuka and be married with kids.
Well, this is certainly true. So here's my
And you can watch reality TV too if you want.
Her narcissism is you're right that she's a narcissist, but it's reflective. And here's the real problem. The aspiration is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. It is in fact wrong to aspire to this life. It is wrong to aspire to this. There's nothing wrong with this is how your life turned out. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with you haven't set the preconditions to make a different choice. But to say that we ought as a society to be apathetic about 2 possible aspirations. One is you're 29, you have a career, you don't have a career, you're married, you have kids. Versus you're 29 and your life consists of you stay out till really late watching a Beyonce concert and then you get up at 10:30 and maybe you make shakshuka and then watch 8 hours of TV. Any society that is apathetic between these 2 choices is a failed society, period. A society relies on the idea that the better life, society does have things to say about what a better life looks like. I'm not talking about compulsion, I'm not talking about tyrannical compulsion, but of course, any functional civilization has to rely on the basis that there is such a thing as good versus bad and good choices versus bad choices. And guess what? A set of good choices is a set of choices that is directed toward a good end. And that good end is you should get married and you should have kids, and it is better for you to get married and have kids, and it is better for your community for you to get married and have kids. This is a childless society. That's the biggest thing that you see.
And also, I think, just to build on your point, there's also, I talk about this all the time, and people say to me, well, are you saying that everyone is supposed to get married and have kids? And my answer is that most people are supposed to. In fact, most people are called to. It's a responsibility that most of us have. Not everyone, though. Some people have a different vocation. A minority of people.
I'm a Jew. I don't have to do that. Everyone should get married and have children.
Well, there are some people. It just never happen. They try to, and it will never happen. And so, but here's the point. In my view, every man is called to fatherhood. Every woman is called to motherhood.
Absolutely.
For 99% probably of men, fatherhood will take the form of traditional fatherhood, and for women, it'll take the form of traditional motherhood. For a few people, it'll take a different form, but it has to take some kind of form. So maybe you never end up getting married, and you go and you're a missionary or something, and you're taking care of poor people. Or you go work at a hospital or something, but you take on a maternalistic or paternalistic role. The point is that we're all called to serve in that capacity in some way. We certainly are not called to just serve ourselves and amuse ourselves.
Well,
for our whole
she's
life.
even wrong.
Shockingly,
I tend to share Drew's pity and sympathy for this lady because she's coping. She's coping, really. And she's a creation of this. And so what bothers me is our culture is so insistent on appearing happy all the time. We're never allowed to admit, that things aren't working out very well because it would cause us to check our assumptions. But what she says that's most wrong is she said, look, I have so much ease in my life. I don't have any obligations. Sleeping until 10:30 in the morning is what depressives.
That literally seems like a depressed.
It is, yeah. And but people have studied happiness for some millennia now. And to quote good old Uncle Aristotle again, like Aristotle has an answer. He says, happiness is excellent rational activity in accordance with virtue. And activity is the key word there. It's not just a thing that you let happen to you. It's not just passive consumption and letting flickering images on a screen just hypnotize you all day long. It's doing something in an excellent way that's rational in accordance with virtue. And if she's preaching this anti-gospel to a lot of people on TikTok, on her podcast, it actually is our responsibility to say that's wrong.
It's a complete failure of her parents' generation. I'm not even going to blame her generation or her. It's a complete failure because every generation has to impress on somebody. Parenthood and growing up, it is like Plato's cave because you can't experience it until you do it. Right? You have to have somebody from an older generation who did the thing and said, yeah, it was really hard because parenting is difficult. It's really difficult. I mean, I have 4, Matt has 6. Parenting is not easy. It is a difficult task. Your kids are a pain in the ass on a fairly regular basis. And guess what? It's also the most fulfilling thing and most important thing you'll ever do by a long stretch. And it makes you a better person. And there is such a thing as a better and a worse person. Not all people are the same in terms of their moral quality. I mean, everyone is the same in the eyes of God. That's not the same thing as saying that their activities make them the same in terms of moral quality, because they're not. And not every aspiration is the same in terms of moral quality. It's a failure of older generations to inculcate on younger generations that they ought to try to get beyond the point that they are capable of experiencing here. And that does require a leap of faith. This is when I got engaged to my wife, I gave a little speech at our engagement party talking about how basically anything good that you do in your life is at some level a leap of faith, right? Everything, marriage being the biggest one, but having kids is just as big because you don't really know what you're getting into when you get married, because how could you? Because marriage changes you and it changes your wife and it changes both of you in such unbelievable ways over the course of decades that even the first day of marriage is nothing remotely like the 15th year of marriage, and I can assume the 200th year of marriage like Drew. And when it comes to kids, it's so different. Every single day is wildly different. Parenting a baby is so different from parenting a 3-year-old, which is so different from parenting a 9-year-old, let alone a teenager, let alone an adult child. Every day is an act of faith, and we're a society that is faithless and not capable of taking the risk. We're a very safe society. What she's talking about here is a bubble of safety that exists for her in which every day is exactly the same, and no risk is required of you, and no risk can be asked of you, and you're told that your risk-free behavior is actually the best thing that you can do, or at least morally equivalent to taking the risk that preserves future generations and a civilization worth preserving.
I want to ask Candace a question, because I know you homeschool your kids, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
well, my wife does.
This is the question. I mean, the idea.
Professor Matt.
I'm assuming that it's Mrs. Walsh who does it, because the idea of being homeschooled by Matt is just. I can't contain.
I wouldn't do that to my kids.
No. Yeah.
Hit this piece of wood with this axe.
But what's your solution?
Until you understand,
here? What do you do?
Well, that's the thing is we're talking about homeschooling, and also part of that might be we just send them to Matt's house because he seems to have it under control. There's 6 of them.
We wouldn't even notice we have so many kids now.
Yeah, exactly.
If I just threw 3 more, you would just I think maybe
we just absorb them.
Yeah. But it's one of these things that and also my husband just thinks the American education system in general is a massive failure compared to, I mean, it is, which it actually is relative to, the UK, which still has some semblance of an academic culture. And so we talk about this over and over again. It's one of those discussions where we're like, it's crazy that we're even talking about this, but I don't want to have to deal with the fear of some other idiot having a phone and introducing him to pornography. I don't want to have to deal with these young women, and this is why it is so important to respond to these women. It is so important because you are correct. Their generation above them failed them, right? They failed them. They failed to communicate the message. And so we're all left holding the baton. And this is why I hit these people on my podcast over and over again, because these cultural battles, they matter. It is important to tweet this girl and to say what I said. If you follow this girl's path, you are going to end up wine nights by yourself on Xanax, because that is where it ends. It ends as you as Chelsea Handler, crying and bursting into tears over absolutely nothing and saying, well, Dylan Mulvaney just needs to be able to use this restroom. That's where your life is headed, because you've nurtured nothing. You've fought against your biology. Sociology trumped your biology, and you will suffer at the end, because in the end, biology will win. And, you know, I did the Bill Maher podcast last week, and we spoke about that and what really happens to women when they get duped by feminism, right? Because they get duped. Feminism, I say, is like a drug you should try in college. I experimented a little bit with feminism. I was like, I might be feminist like this. And then you're like, no, come on, I can't do this outside of college, right? And
never got onto the harder stuff.
Yeah, I never got into the harder stuff, right? And then if you keep going, your life is going to be absolute misery. And so it is why I take the time to respond. I mean, Emma Ratajkowski, we just watched her say, there's nothing better.
Congratulations.
Nothing
Congratulations on failing.
Pina colada on the beach?
Than being divorced before 30.
And then,
What?
On the I think another point that we have to make culturally is that there is a lot of joy to be found, immense joy to be found in parenthood and in family life that just is not available to you if you don't get married and have kids. It's just a joy. It's not
That's so
but here's the important point. Because you can also be deeply miserable as a parent. You could be incredibly miserable all the time. So the joy that is available to you as a parent is available. It makes joy available to you, but it's an opportunity for joy, and it's up to you to experience it or not. So, and this comes up in a lot of little ways every day. So, for example, last Saturday morning, I get up. My wife had to go out, and so I'm with all 6 kids, and they want they want breakfast, and the babies are crying and all this. And it's one of those moments where right now I can dwell on the fact that everyone needs me, and I can be really, really annoyed, and it's in the morning, and I don't feel like dealing with it. Or I can think to myself, this is a house full of life. I've got all these kids that want to be around me, and it's just energy and life, and it's a wonderful thing. So in that moment, I can really choose. It's a fork in the road, and it's a very deliberate thing. I'm going to be very indescribably happy in this moment, or I'm going to be miserable. And so that's so if you are childless and you look at parents who are miserable all the time, and they do exist, and you think, well, I don't want that. What you have to realize is that those are parents who have chosen that.
And either way, you're going to be more alive than you would ever be without those
Well,
children.
I mean, there is such a thing as purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. And that's what's left out of that video. And when she talks about ease, she's not wrong. It's very easy to be 29 and single with no obligations. That's like the ease is the word. It's this feeling of ease and floating free of time. And of course, the biological clock is still ticking. So the reality is that, as you say, Candace, she can pretend that she's going to be 29 forever, but reality, she ain't. 10 years from now, she will be 39. And in 10 years after that, she will be 49. And as far as the parenting aspect of it, Roy Baumeister is an interesting psychologist and does a lot of the social science on these sorts of issues. He did some studies where he looked at the crossover between happiness and fulfillment. And in many areas, they coincide, right? For a lot of people, they get happiness from travel, but they also get fulfillment from travel. The one area where there's wide divergence is when it comes to parenting. When it comes to parenting, single people will say very often they'll self-report, which is always dubious, but they'll self-report happiness. And people who have lots of kids will self-report not being as happy. When it comes to fulfillment, people with kids self-report fulfillment at a far higher rate, because the truth is that who cares about happiness? I mean, to be real about this,
You're right.
everybody is chasing the wrong thing. The phrase "pursuit of happiness" was supposed to mean what it meant to Aristotle. It wasn't supposed to mean you feeling happy today. That's not what happiness is. If you look at any sort of religious literature, the definition of happiness is fundamentally different. You're supposed to find fulfillment and happiness are coincident. And this is why the Bible, for example, can command you to be happy. And you say, how can I be commanded to feel a certain way? I can't be commanded to be happy. Like, we have a bunch of holidays that are coming up, and you're literally commanded to be happy. It's like, how can I be commanded? What if I don't feel like it? What if I don't feel like I'm happy that day? And the answer is, we're not talking about a subjective state of mind. We are talking about the meaning and purpose and fulfillment that come from doing a higher thing that actually matters in the universe and makes the society around you better.
Yeah.
And you can live this sort of bizarre floating life in a sort of strange solipsistic bubble, but is that going to be fulfilling in any way when you die at 80 and you look at, or 90 and you look back at your life? what exactly do you put on your tombstone? Went to Beyonce concert? Like what exactly what exactly goes there?
Wow, you guys, that was such an interesting session with the Daily Wire host. I really enjoyed every minute that this lasted. They had good and valid point, and I totally agree with each and every one of them. They all spoke from a place of knowledge and a place of experience. I love how they cited different examples using their life, and this was very, very interesting, and I had fun reacting to them. If you guys totally enjoyed watching, give this video a massive thumbs up, comment, share, and all that good stuff, and do not hesitate to drop your comment in the comment section, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.